They say good men get ignored. But have you ever asked why the man who stays loyal, stays silent, stays grounded, ends up invisible? In a world obsessed with noise and performance, true strength walks unnoticed. The man who resists temptation, who doesn't chase, who controls his anger instead of unleashing it. He becomes the ghost, not because he is weak, but because he refuses to kneel for attention. And that terrifies people. You're not ignored because you lack value. You're ignored because you refuse to beg for it. But what if I told you that being unseen is not your curse, it's your advantage? That there's a forgotten power in not being chosen, a secret weapon in being misunderstood. What you're about to hear will burn through every illusion you've ever held about what it means to be a good man. This is not motivation for the faint-hearted. This is the kind of truth that scars, rebuilds, and transforms. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you won't just understand why you've been ignored. You'll understand why it's the greatest gift the world ever gave you. They call him the nice guy, the one who listens, the one who stays when others walk away, the one who doesn't raise his voice, doesn't impose, doesn't demand. They praise his character in private, but forget his presence in public. He's the one who holds the door, carries the weight in silence, offers his hand without asking for anything in return. But here's the brutal truth. No one remembers the man who doesn't ask to be seen. Society claims to love good men, but it doesn't reward them. It drains them. It uses their silence as consent, their humility as permission, and their loyalty as a leash. And in the end, they stand alone, wondering if goodness was a mistake. But here's the turning point you weren't taught. Being good isn't the problem. Being predictable is. We live in a world that is loud, desperate, addicted to instant gratification. People are drawn to the unpredictable, the dramatic, the explosive. They confuse chaos with passion. They chase toxicity and call it intensity. So when a man walks in with composure, discipline, and emotional clarity, he doesn't spark curiosity. He threatens comfort zones. A man who doesn't argue, doesn't chase, doesn't break, isn't exciting to them. He's intimidating. Because his silence reflects their noise. His peace reveals their chaos. His control mirrors their lack of it. And rather than rise to meet his standard, they reject him to protect their illusions. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. And yet, how painful it is to realize that virtue feels like punishment in a world ruled by shallow validation. But here lies the hidden power, the reason why most will never walk this path. A Stoic man doesn't move for applause. He doesn't flex for attention. He knows that being overlooked is not a curse. It's a fire, one that burns away the ego and tempers the soul. What they call being ignored, he knows is simply the space where transformation occurs. He doesn't need to be understood to be unshaken. He doesn't need to be chosen to know he's worthy. He walks through rejection, not as a victim, but as a student. He studies the silence. He learns from the shadows. And every time they turn away, he turns inward and builds. Because while the world is busy rewarding performance, he is becoming a storm, quiet, precise, and devastatingly unstoppable. Now ask yourself this. What if being ignored was never your downfall, but your training ground? What if invisibility is how the gods test the few they choose to make unbreakable? In the next chapter, we will go deeper into the reason why emotional detachment isn't coldness, but a shield, a strategy, and a form of inner power that terrifies the weak. Stay. You're not finished being forged yet. The world will call you cold when you stop reacting. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, heartless, emotionless. But what they really mean is this: you're no longer controllable. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, it's the presence of mastery. It's what separates the man who is ruled by the world from the one who rules himself. In the eyes of the average, detachment looks like numbness, but in the eyes of the awakened, it is liberation. When you stop handing out your emotions like charity, you start protecting your energy like a king. And here's the bitter truth they won't teach you. Every time you overreact, every time you beg for love, every time you spiral because someone didn't choose you, you give away your power. You become a puppet in the theater of chaos. But when you detach, when you choose stillness over reaction, silence over explosion, you become the storm they can't predict. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that is the trap. Most people live inside storms they've built in their minds. They assume silence means rejection, that detachment means defeat. But what if detachment is the greatest discipline of all? What if emotional restraint is not weakness but war strategy? Picture this. A man stands in front of betrayal, heartbreak, humiliation, and feels it fully, deeply, but responds with calm. He doesn't suppress it. He absorbs it, studies it, and transforms it into fuel. That man is dangerous, not because he feels nothing, but because he refuses to let feelings dictate his direction. He has trained himself to feel without falling, to care without clinging, to love without losing himself. This is not coldness, it's command. And in a society addicted to emotional outbursts, such command is terrifying. But here's where it gets darker, deeper, and more real. The moment you master detachment, people will try to provoke you harder. They will test your calm. They will insult your silence. They will mistake your peace for arrogance. Why? Because your presence exposes their lack of self-control. Your discipline confronts their indulgence, and your stability breaks their illusion of dominance. But remember this. No one tries to shake what doesn't threaten them. You are not distant. You are precise. You are not emotionless. You are untouchable. And that, more than anything, is what separates a man shaped by Stoicism from one shaped by society. In the next chapter, we will unravel why the man who controls his desires becomes the man who commands the world, and why most men will never reach that level of inner dominion. Stay close. You're about to cross a line few dare to approach. Desire is not love. It's not passion. It's not purpose. It's a silent addiction, an invisible chain that binds men to weakness. The average man believes that wanting something, someone, is what makes him alive. He believes the pursuit is noble, that his hunger defines his strength. But he's wrong. Because uncontrolled desire doesn't make you powerful. It enslaves you. It hijacks your focus, clouds your logic, and buries your self-respect under layers of obsession. And here's where it turns vicious. When you let desire govern your choices, you become predictable. And when you're predictable, you're disposable. The Stoics knew this long before modern men were even born. As Epictetus warned, freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and you will never be free until you conquer your desires. Think about that. You are not free until you can walk away from what you want, until you can stand in front of temptation and choose silence instead of chasing. That's power. That's real dominance. That's the kind of man the world can't control. But here's the sting. Most men will never reach this level. They will chase validation like oxygen, lust like survival, and approval like purpose. They will kneel at the feet of women who don't respect them, beg for attention from people who ignore them, and destroy their own peace just to feel wanted. And when they fall, they'll call it heartbreak. But it's not heartbreak, it's self-abandonment. Because the moment you need something outside of yourself to feel complete, you've handed over your soul. But the man who restrains himself, the one who doesn't need, doesn't crave, doesn't beg, he becomes a fortress, unshakable, feared, revered. He doesn't chase because he knows that what's meant for him will come, not out of manipulation, not out of desperation, but out of alignment. This is the secret the world doesn't want you to know. When you become the man who desires nothing, everything starts chasing you. And it gets even darker from here, because once you break free from the grip of desire, you begin to see the world for what it truly is, a battlefield of broken men chasing illusions. You stop playing the game, and you start mastering it. In the next chapter, we will dive into the silent war between approval and purpose, why the man who lives for praise will always be a slave, and how the Stoic builds an identity that no opinion can touch. Keep watching. Your awakening has just begun. There's a silent war happening every day, a war between approval and purpose, and most men, they lose before the battle even begins. They walk into every room seeking to be liked, praised, validated. They shape their words to please, twist their personalities to fit, and betray their instincts just to avoid being misunderstood. But here's the raw truth no one wants to say out loud. The more you need approval, the less you own yourself. When your mood depends on applause, when your self-worth trembles at criticism, when your decisions are fueled by fear of judgment, you are not living, you are performing. And every time you perform, you kill your purpose. Slowly, silently, but completely. As Marcus Aurelius once said, it never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. What could be more tragic than a man who dies trying to please people who would never bleed for him? The Stoic does not seek applause. He does not shapeshift for comfort. He walks into the storm with one thing in mind, his mission. Whether it's embraced or rejected, loved or mocked, he does not waver. Why? Because purpose is not fragile, it is forged in rejection. Purpose isn't about being understood, it's about being unchangeable. Most men would rather be liked than respected. But the Stoic, he knows that silence is often louder than praise, and solitude is more sacred than shallow companionship. The man of purpose says no when others beg for yes. He walks away when others chase. He stands firm when others kneel, and in doing so, he becomes the one thing this world cannot own. That is the greatest threat of all, a man who belongs to nothing but his values. But this chapter isn't the end, it's the mirror. Look closely. Are you living to be accepted or to be remembered? In the next chapter, we will expose the fatal flaw of people-pleasing and how it corrodes your core identity like poison in the bloodstream. We'll uncover how the Stoic rewires his self-worth from within until no one's praise can inflate him and no one's hate can destroy him. This is not just survival, this is rebirth. And if you're still breathing, you're not too late. Stay, it only gets more dangerous from here. There is no virtue in constantly saying yes, no honor in being the man everyone can call, control, and consume. Yet too many men confuse being liked with being valuable. They shrink their fire to avoid making others uncomfortable. They silence their truth just to maintain peace. But peace without self-respect is nothing but quiet slavery. Let that sink in. Every time you abandon your own needs to keep someone else happy, every time you say yes with a heart full of no, you're not being kind. You're disappearing, slowly, quietly, permanently. And the world will never tell you to stop because it benefits from your silence. As Seneca warned, if you live in harmony with nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to the opinion of others, you will never be rich. And make no mistake, this poverty of the soul is far worse than any material loss. Because when you live to please, you forget who you are, and eventually, so does everyone else. The Stoic man. He pleases no one but his conscience. He does not fear rejection because his self-worth isn't rented out to public opinion. He doesn't walk into rooms asking, "Will they like me?" He walks in asking, "Will I respect myself when I walk out?" That's the difference. That's the power. He knows that saying no is not an act of rebellion, but of alignment. He doesn't compromise his boundaries for temporary affection. He doesn't trade his voice for inclusion, because he's not playing a popularity game. He's playing for legacy. And here's the dark truth. The more you please people, the more they expect you to disappear for them. But the moment you stop, they call you selfish, cold, arrogant. Let them. Because if their love requires your self-betrayal, it was never love to begin with. The Stoic understands that losing fake peace is the cost of gaining real power. And now the question hangs over your life like a blade. How many pieces of yourself have you given away just to be accepted? How much of your identity have you diluted just to fit in? In the next and most crucial chapter, we'll tear into the core truth. Why the man who embraces solitude becomes a weapon in a world addicted to distraction. We'll unveil how isolation, not companionship, is the birthplace of unbreakable power. The storm is coming, and this time, you'll be it. And subscribe now, because this isn't just transformation, it's ascension.